I thought someone left this as a prank because the lunchbox was so carelessly put together.
I brought my daughter's lunchbox to work. Your lunchbox so stank, so I threw it away, my boss mocked, pointing at the trash can. After seeing this, I responded to him with an astonishing remark.
What the heck?
Right after, my beautiful wife appeared. My name is John Smith. I work as a chef at a hotel, currently specializing in braised dishes. The braises I make are not only popular among the guests, but also highly appreciated by my co-workers as a staff meal. The fish we get from our direct supply store is so fresh that it's often served as a grilled fish, to the great delight of our customers. Especially the grilled dishes made by our sous chef. They're also exceptionally delicious. The young staffs are all enthusiastic and actively engaged in their work. At 35, I'm of a mid-level age. Normally, it would be too young to be in charge of braises, but I was scouted directly by the previous head chef to work here. I used to work at a different hotel, honing my skills in French cuisine. My dream was to run a French restaurant, so I had no intention of pursuing American cuisine. However, as I loved American food too, I would go to have regional foods and food walks as a hobby, learning about various dishes' flavors. That was my young days. A customer who wanted an American-style breakfast came in one morning. The breakfast I served was a hit, and I got scouted because of it. Actually, that customer was my former head chef of the hotel.
I've never had such a gentle yet satisfying meal for breakfast.
I'd really like you to work at our hotel. I was offered, and that's how I switched to my current job. There, I began to master the art of American cuisine. Everyone, even as a newcomer, was kind to me, including my fellow chefs, the maids, and the office staff. I got along well with the cleaning staff too, working in harmony. This hotel, blessed with a great environment, was very comfortable, and most importantly, the former head chef was a wonderful person. He was like a real parent to me, always giving me heartfelt advice about everything from my personal life to my work. He retired when he reached his pension age. A new head chef was appointed, but he turned out to be the worst. He's the only person in this workplace that I truly detest.
John, what's with this braise? The flavor is too strong.
Edward Johnson. He's the current head chef at our inn and my senior by 5 years. Edward and I actually didn't meet for the first time at this workplace, at the hotel where I worked during my early career days. He had also joined. Edward, unlike me who's work-focused, used to get by with just enough work. We never got along, hardly ever talking to each other outside of work. Interestingly, the sous chef also joined the hotel at the same time as me, and we hit it off right away as we were on the same wavelength. We spent every night engrossed in culinary research. The sous chef and I, we had a bond beyond work, often going out for drinks together. Back then, my goal was to own my restaurant someday and make my parents proud, and the sous chef shared a similar ambition. Some nights, we'd talk until dawn while researching cooking, both of us driven by our dreams. But amidst this, there was one person who was just coasting through his culinary training, the current head chef, Edward. Edward had no motivation back then, just getting by with the bare minimum. He never bothered with studying or experimenting in cooking, relying solely on his innate sense. He claims effort and study are for average people without talent. Someone exceptional like me doesn't need to bother with that. He always looked down on us. But he did have talent. He was naturally skilled with his hands and had an exceptional aesthetic sense. His food art, especially with vegetables, was highly praised by the guests. His skill with the carving knife was unmatched, truly top-notch. The sous chef and I lacked that kind of talent, and honestly, there were times we envied and resented him for it. However, it felt like a waste that someone with such talent didn't put in the effort to develop it further. His complacency was something we just couldn't come to like, and naturally, a deep rift formed between us and Edward.
Next time, we're introducing a new dish, and I want you three to participate in the competition to create it.
A few years later, when I was about 25, the head chef at the time asked us three to participate in a new dish competition. The sous chef and I, of course, agreed. We'd love to take part, we said with enthusiasm, but the one who showed little interest was Edward.
I'm fine, really. I'm not interested in that kind of thing. I'll just focus on the work I'm given.
Even the head chef was taken aback by this response, sighing at Edward. The head chef was a special figure to me. He had been taking care of me since I joined the hotel, and honestly, his disappointment made me feel like my parents' feelings had been hurt, causing me discomfort and irritation. But I am an adult, too. I wouldn't engage in a pitiful argument in such a situation.
Let the cooking do the talking.
It was a mantra the head chef often repeated to us. I'll create dishes that captivate people more than Edward's, and someday I'll show him up. With that hungry spirit, I worked tirelessly. The sous chef did the same, striving hard. And on the day of the competition, not only the head chef, but also the head waiter of that time, along with the general manager and manager, were present. Amid the tension, the tasting began. Our senior chefs served their dishes, and the head chef and others tasted them with serious expressions. It was a quiet tasting session, with no comments given. Everyone, watching the head chef and others' faces, was feeling their own sense of accomplishment. Then it was finally our turn, the sous chefs and mine. We presented our best dishes and received praise not only from the head chef and general manager, but also from the fellow chefs who had come to watch the competition.
You guys have really grown. Remember when you couldn't even peel a radish properly?
You've grown remarkably in these past few years.
We can let our guard down.
Saying this, we received praise from everyone around us, and the sous chef and I exchanged glances while blushing with a shy smile.
Excuse me.
Suddenly, Edward appeared, unexpectedly holding a dish in his hand, leaving everyone momentarily speechless. Why is Edward, you didn't participate in the competition, bringing a dish here? In a situation that made everyone want to ask this question, everyone was stunned.
I changed my mind, and I wanted to join the competition too. So I've prepared this dish,
he said, placing a dish on the table that was incomparably more impressive than those of the sous chef and me, drawing criticism from everyone.
What are you doing, Edward? You said you weren't interested in the competition.
I just felt like it all of a sudden. Honestly, I knew if I entered the competition, from now on only my dishes would get through. I was trying to be respectful to the seniors by holding back.
Edward said with a smug, mocking smile, provoking the emotions of the senior chefs. One senior, angered by his taunt, was about to confront him but was restrained by another senior.
So, you can't win with cooking, and now you want to try with force. Many chefs are quick-tempered and foolish, but this really proves it. Even my own seniors are such an embarrassment.
Edward, please stop provoking the seniors. Everyone here has put their all into this competition. Isn't it you who's the lesser person for mocking those who are trying hard? I had never directly spoken up against Edward before, but I love all these people here. Seeing the people I care about being ridiculed, especially when everyone is so earnestly engaged in this competition, to have someone come and wreck such a sincere effort, I just couldn't stand it. I just couldn't hold back any longer. But my retort probably irritated Edward, who considered himself superior. He glared at me, advancing with a condescending sneer.
Don't you dare preach to me when your cooking sense is inferior to mine. What do you mean all out? No one can surpass my dishes, so don't get cocky.
Despite his intimidation, I remained unshaken, but when it came to culinary skills, I couldn't respond back. Then, unexpectedly breaking the tense atmosphere, a woman exclaimed in surprise,
"This is delicious."
Her oblivious outburst instantly drew everyone's attention. It was Annie Stanfield, working as a waitress. Annie had come to the hall to speak with the head chef, unaware of the ongoing competition. Intending to quietly approach the chef and return to her post, she didn't have the courage to speak up in such a charged atmosphere. Waiting for the argument to end, she saw the array of dishes prepared by the chefs. Annie was hungry, so she couldn't resist sampling a bit.
"This is incredibly tasty. Whose dish is this?"
Obviously, the dish was so delicious that Annie couldn't help but exclaim, and she became curious about who had made it. Swallowing the food in her mouth, she broke the tense atmosphere with her words, "I made that." I timidly raised my hand in response to her question. Seeing this, Annie's expression changed from shock to excitement. Her face lit up with excitement, and she rushed over to me.
"You made this, it's amazing. I've never tasted anything so delicious, especially this pie. When I cut open the pie inside, much beef juice comes out, turning it into beef soup. Such an innovative idea. It's a fascinating dish that delights twice."
Hearing her words, the head chef and others were taken aback, prompting them to reconsider my dish.
The way you hid the secret inside the pie is amazing.
Smith, this is incredibly creative.
The previously tense atmosphere changed in an instant. Thanks to Annie, everyone's mood lightened, and my hidden gem of a dish was highly praised. No one was praising Edward's dish anymore.
"You were belittling these people just a while ago, weren't you?"
Edward, looking frustrated, glared at us. Annie approached him, her innocent eyes intently observing the tarnished man. She tried a bite of Edward's dish.
"Yay, just as I thought. Your dish is all about looks and lacks any warmth. It feels like a lonely meal."
Annie said, pulling out a tissue from her pocket and wrapping up Edward's dish before swallowing it.
To me, John's cooking feels warmer and more pleasing to the guests. Maybe you should stop acting so high and mighty. It just makes you seem like an insensitive fool who can't show any consideration for others.
Her smile seemed innocent and natural, yet the words she uttered didn't have a hint of cuteness. It was as if sharp thorns were wrapping around Edward's heart. Annie, having delivered her venomous words with a smile, seemed satisfied with his reaction. She then promptly conveyed her message to the head chef and left the scene. Following this competition, I was seen in a new light by everyone, earning affection from my seniors and bosses. As for Edward, the workplace became uncomfortable for him after this incident, leading him to transfer to a hotel owned by an acquaintance. I thought I'd never have to deal with him again. But why? Why do we end up working at the same place again? I find myself venting about today's frustrations to Annie, who's making some snacks for our evening drink at home.
They say some ties can't be broken, and it seems like that's exactly the case with me and Edward.
As I sip my beer, I find myself slumping over in front of the snacks Annie has prepared. Since that incident, Annie and I grew closer and started dating. Annie, always praising my cooking, brings a lot of brightness and warmth into my life, especially when I'm feeling down from work. Her natural cheerfulness brightened my days when work got me down, bringing lots of warmth. I always wanted to see her smile. Moved by these thoughts, I confessed my feelings to Annie. After dating for 5 years, we finally got married. We were blessed with a child, and now we have a 3-year-old daughter. I wish my fate wasn't tied to someone like Edward. Why do I have to be bound by the red string of fate to the last person I want to meet in the world? Even as I savored the delicious appetizers, tears of hardship threatened to spill from my eyes, and I slumped my shoulders as if to say woe is me.
Edward did have real talent for cooking. I understand why he was poached, but I was honestly shocked when he was recruited as the manager.
I had joined the current in through scouting, and then, to my surprise, Edward was scouted by our manager. It seems our manager and Edward knew each other from his previous job, and just as our head chef was retiring, they were looking for a new one. That's when our manager scouted Edward, who was working as a head chef at another hotel. The general manager, who knew nothing about it, approved the decision. Later, he found out about my relationship with Edward, and the situation became unmanageable.
Dad, is something bothering you? You look so down.
My daughter, worried, spoke to me as I ate the appetizers with slumped shoulders. She patted my head as if to encourage me, saying, "I'm here for you," giving me strength. "Nothing's wrong. With you and Emily here, I can tackle anything. All's good."
That's great. You know, Mom and I made your lunch for tomorrow. Don't forget to take it with you.
My daughter showed a shy smile. I was touched by her kindness, feeling the warmth from Emily. I hugged my daughter tightly, expressing my gratitude over and over again. And the next day, holding the family lunchbox, filled with love from my wife and daughter, I headed to work feeling excited. Lunchtime came, and I was eating in the office.
"Hey John, what's that? A love-packed lunchbox from your wife."
The sous chef teased me, as it was rare for me to bring a lunchbox. "Yeah, it is. Jealous, right?" Ha! Today's a special one. My daughter helped make it.
Really? She's that big already?
She's 3 now. She admires me and says she wants to be a chef when she grows up.
You're living the dream, man. I'm envious.
While I was eating with the sous chef, one of the younger staff appeared.
John, sorry to interrupt. The head chef wants to discuss some changes to tonight's menu, and he's looking for you.
Hearing Edward's name even during lunch made me feel deflated. With a wry smile and a "don't worry about it" from the sous chef, I stopped eating my lunch for a moment. The sous chef, having finished his meal, left the office with me to return to the kitchen for the afternoon preparations. But no matter how much I searched, I couldn't find the head chef anywhere. Where the heck is that old man? I grumbled to myself. Just then, the head chef emerged from the office direction, grinning mischievously as he saw me. "Chef, where have you been? Don't call someone and then disappear from the kitchen."
My bad. I went to the office to grab something I forgot and found this awful stench. It was so bad I had to clean it up.
An awful stench. Was there something like that? I felt uneasy about Edward's words since I had been in the office just before.
Do you know whose lunchbox was left out on the desk?
Edward asked with a sly smile. At that moment, a horrible suspicion crossed my mind. It's mine, why?
Really? That was your lunchbox. It smelled and looked so bad. I had to throw it away.
Edward made a shocking statement. I was speechless. I couldn't believe that there were people who would do such a thing, and struggled to accept this unbelievable event.
At least write your name on it. I thought someone left it as a prank because the lunchbox was so carelessly made.
He laughed crudely, seemingly enjoying my astonished reaction. That made me furious. I felt like throwing a punch, ready to unleash my anger on Edward, when suddenly, "Chef, bad luck for you.
What?
You're done for."
Huh?
With that, I gestured with my head for him to turn around. "What's that?" Edward turned around with an annoyed expression.
Whose lunchbox did you call a rotten, filthy mess?
There stood Annie, looking furious, while holding our daughter who was trying to hold back tears. And to my surprise, the general manager and the chairman of our inn were also present.
Annie? And the general manager and the chairman. What's going on?
Never mind that. Is what you just said true about throwing away a lunchbox, and what did you call it?
Annie, suppressing her voice while handing our crying daughter to me. I took our daughter, telling her it's okay to cry, and let Annie handle the situation.
People made that lunchbox and you called it dirty and smelly. Did I hear that right?
Annie, emitting an even darker aura than before, confronted Edward with a forced smile. Edward was visibly frightened by the scene. He collapsed to the ground, his face turning pale and a strained smile on his lips.
Your cooking is even dirtier and uglier. A fool who can only cook with money dares to mock someone's homemade meal.
Intimidated by Annie's fierce words, Edward let out a small yelp of fear. Actually, Annie was known as quite the wild child in her younger days around town. When she gets angry, she tends to speak in a confrontational tone and has a habit of intimidating others. Both my daughter and I were stunned to see Annie in this seriously enraged mode. something we hadn't witnessed in a long time. The chairman, accustomed to her ways, watched over, allowing Annie to handle it in her own way.
You threw away my husband's lunchbox our daughter worked hard to make for me in the trash. How are you going to make amends for that?
Annie, stop. This is a workplace. Don't go any further with this.
Edward, frightened by Annie, turned his face away. As if to say she wouldn't let him escape, Annie grabbed his collar, but realizing it was getting out of hand, the chairman intervened. He took Annie's hand and made her let go of Edward's collar. Edward couldn't hide his surprise at the calm demeanor of both the chairman and the general manager. Confused and panicking, he bombarded the general manager with questions.
Why are the general manager and Annie here? Do you two know each other?
Know each other. The chairman is my grandfather.
What?
Edward exclaimed in shock, utterly dumbfounded. Well, that explains it. Watching the exchange with a wry smile, I remembered how surprised I was when I first heard the story during our dating days.
Our daughter wanted to create summer vacation memories by eating delicious food at her grandfather's inn, so we planned to stay here today. We thought we'd stay over and also check out how John is doing at work, and say hello to everyone. It turned out to be the right decision. This way, Grandpa and the others got to see what's really happening inside the workplace, didn't they?
Annie spoke nonchalantly with a bright smile. Hearing this, Edward's face showed a startled expression, and he slowly turned his gaze towards the general manager.
It seems we don't need a chef like you in our hotel, Edward.
The Phil said, his gaze sharp, speaking in a stern tone.
I'm sorry, but you are dismissed as of today. Consider this the end of your contract.
What? Please reconsider, General Manager.
Why should I? You don't value your subordinates and dispose of others' belongings without a second thought. I see no need for such an insensitive person.
But the cuisine of this inn is popular because of me. Without me, you can't maintain this popularity.
Don't be ridiculous, I said, calming my teary daughter and holding her hand. We don't serve cuisine that will falter just because you're not here. We all take our roles as chefs seriously. You, who think cooking is just about appearances and looks, have no right to call yourself a chef. I left my daughter with Emily and walked towards Edward. I don't want someone like you, who has become complacent in their talent and has made no effort to claim the title of head chef of this inn. Please leave. Don't tarnish our precious workplace any further. My shout drew the attention of passing employees, and their eyes fixed on Edward. Word spread quickly, and a crowd began to gather. Realizing he was overwhelmingly seen as the villain, Edward, perhaps overwhelmed by being in such a situation, chose to flee. He fled from the inn as if running away, effectively resigning from his position at our workplace. Since that incident, he hasn't been able to come back to work, leading to his dismissal due to unexcused absences, and now he is unemployed. Now unemployed, he hasn't given up on being a chef, but it seems no place nearby is willing to hire him. Eventually, he decided to give up and leave the area. After that, the sous chef took over as head chef following Edward's departure. The hotel's cuisine became even more renowned than before, with the sous chef's efforts particularly appealing to women, thanks to its delicious taste and visually appealing presentation. Soon, it became a hot topic in the neighborhood and was even featured in magazines. A few years passed, and this spring, I finally achieved my long-held dream of owning my own restaurant.
We finally made it come true.
Yeah, it's all thanks to you guys.
I'm excited for Dad's restaurant.
Annie and our daughter visited the day before the opening to see the restaurant. And then,
I never imagined John would become such a fine chef.
We're in for a treat today, John.
my parents, Annie's parents, and my grandfather were all there to celebrate. Surrounded by their blessings and support, I vowed to continue improving my skills